Alrighty, I think we're live here on YouTube. Hello, everyone. Shout out to Huawei and their designer team for creating the webcam right on the keyboard. So apologies if you will be looking up my nose for the whole event today, but yeah, maybe double check on that design, Huawei. I'm talking to you from my second office. I've just been traveling from the airport as I will be spending a couple days here in my hometown in Sicily. And I'm super happy to be here with you. So whether you're watching this video live right now or in the future, we hope that we're finding you safe and sound wherever you are. So here at Floxies Community, every Wednesday we've called it Wonder Wednesday. And I wanted to tell you a little bit on why we call it Wonder Wednesday. So I jotted down a quick description of the word wonder and what it means in my neatest handwriting. Not true. So here it is. So wonder, a feeling of amazement and admiration caused by something beautiful, remarkable, or unfamiliar. And I think this word perfectly resembles our Wednesdays, as our amazing guest speakers every week never fail to provide such feelings. So once again, today we will be having a guest speaker belonging to the design world. Apologies, I've got a bit of a cold as well still. So his name is Edward Penna, coming from England. Hello, Maria. Great to see you here. Shout out to Maria, who's also our Wonder Woman of Floxies Community of the Week. So for those of you who don't know, we also have a newsletter curated by our amazing Aida, Oliva, and other Floxies coming from Spain. And every week we try and feature our amazing women at Floxies. And this week's feature goes to Maria, who's an amazing designer and Webflow developer coming from Greece. Hello, Maria. Happy to give you this shout out. Well deserved. So let's head into our Gather Town, where we have our virtual office, and let's go and see and meet the community. So let's go picture in picture. Here we go. I've made an effort and changed my shirt on my avatar. As I'm not in no rush today, I'm pretty much into summer mode. So I'm very happy, very chilled. And yeah, I'm caring about these little details. Let's join the gathering. Oh, lots of people here. Lots of people here already. Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Claudia.
Oh, let me see if I can hear you. Can I hear you? Can anyone shout?
Hello.
Woo!
Señorita. I cannot. I cannot.
We can hear you.
Here we go. First tech issue. When you change country, that's what happens. All right. Bear with me. Yeah, great. So you can hear me, but I can't hear you. And why is that?
No one's talking though right now.
Let's check the audio.
That's true.
Okay.
I cannot hear you, but everyone is silent.
Everyone's silent.
There should be a tiny music in the background for this.
Right,
We can't hear it either.
Sing.
No, still nothing.
Hey, Edward.
Okay.
Hey, how's it going? Lovely to see you all. Is Claudia having some technical difficulties at the minute?
She is.
Looks like.
It's usually the case. When you get stuff set up, something goes wrong. How is everyone today, though? You all doing well?
Yeah, we're good. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. This is really interesting, by the way. This whole Gather Town stuff. It's my first time using it. It's really cool.
Is it? It's fun, no?
Yeah, definitely. It reminds me of a few games I've played for sure.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yes.
Hey, Claudia.
Finally.
It does, it does. Yeah, perfect. It reminds me of a game called Stardew Valley a lot, for sure. It's really cool. All good, yeah, yeah. That's okay. It's understandable. Absolutely. Yeah. No, you've hit the nail on the head. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me, Claudia. I really do appreciate it. I know it's taken us a while to get this sorted out. I know you've asked me loads of times in the past, but I appreciate you being patient and consistently asking me. That's really nice of you. But yeah, basically what I'm going to be covering today is just a little bit about me and my design process, because like a lot of people jumping into the design career, it's not a linear path. I've gone through so many weird and unusual jobs, but it's all led to this point. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to talk about, and also just be covering some of my process when it comes to logo design. So I'm going to be taking pretty much a recent logo that I've worked on, so a redesign that I did for a business that I selected from LinkedIn. So it was just like a fun little challenge for me, but I covered the breakdown of each individual process. I made a YouTube video around it. So I thought it'd be interesting to show all the different bits that I worked on to come to the final design. And then, yeah, at the end, we can go through any questions that you guys have got about everything that I cover.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Yeah. And also, I've been chasing you for such a long time, because if I see value, it's like you're one of the people that was like, no, I have to get Edward in. I have to, because you're like, you always seemed really kind and like, just generous. And I was like, he seems like a decent person. And also I loved your logos. I've looked through your page, your LinkedIn, and all your designs on your socials. And I was like, we have a great value to learn from this person. So that's why whenever I see some value, I don't stop chasing.
No, I really appreciate that. And you have been persistent, to be honest with you, to be fair with you, you have been persistent, and I really do appreciate that. It's not often I get the opportunity to come on to these different shows and talk about my process and things like that. So I do really appreciate you taking the time to reach out to me. And I'm not sure how we even got started, connecting with each other, to be honest, but it's been a bit of a blessing that we have just by chance. So yeah, if we're all good to get started, I've got like a little bit of a mini presentation to run through. I'll do my best to showcase it. It's worth bearing in mind that my monitor is absolutely huge, so if it looks a bit skew-if, then that's why. So yeah, let me see if I can share it.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm probably going to be sharing the screen at the minute, but here we go. See if we can see this all right. So does that look all good?
Yeah, it looks great. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So like Claudia mentioned, I'm going to be covering pretty much how I tackle my logo design projects. And I thought it'd be interesting just to go through the entire process. So we're going to be going from start to finish. I'm going to be running you through a few tips and tricks here and there. And hopefully by the end of it, you pick up something new. Particularly if you're not into logo design, there's probably a few bits here that you could use within your projects, whether you're an illustrator, whatever it is. I think there's a few gems here and there that you could use. So pretty much, yeah, I mean, it's wonderful to be here. Like I said to Claudia a moment ago, I'm so thankful that she was persistent with trying to get me on this show and talk with you guys today. And I've got, like I say, a few different bits that I'm going to be covering. So let's take a look at a little breakdown of what we're going to be talking about today. So starting from the top, just a bit of a background of what I do, who I am, and how I got started with design. Because like I mentioned, it wasn't a linear path for me whatsoever. At the start, I was didn't really know what I was doing as a career, but everything just kind of fell into place. And I learned a lot through the different, career opportunities that I had. And I think that's well worth talking about as well, particularly to any younger folk or people that are kind of struggling to understand what they want to do as a career, but they have a bit of an interest in design. It's worth bearing in mind, even if you do go on a similar path to what I did, there's bits of experiences that you can take along the way, which when it comes to you actually working as a designer, whether that be freelance or for an agency or whatever it is, that will help you along the way as well. We're then going to get straight into the logo design stuff. So something that I've described as logo design keys, which is essentially just a few fundamentals that I try to bear in mind when I'm designing a logo. So just a few bits that I can bear in mind that will give the best possible outcome for a client. And it just makes sure that I'm designing stuff that's going to work essentially. And then, like I said at the start, I'm going to be covering my entire process based on a recent YouTube video that I've done. So it was basically a logo design for a person that I came across on LinkedIn. I thought that they could do with some improvements for their logo. And I'm going to explain pretty much some of the problems that were, around their original logo and why I decided to redesign it. Then we're going to jump into research and planning. Now, this is probably something that you don't quite consider when it comes to logo design or anything like that. The thing that you'll see a lot online is just like the final outcome when it comes to a logo. But a lot of it and what it takes to come to that final outcome is a lot of research and planning. And I'm going to be showing you just some basic planning that I did for this project. And hopefully, again, you'll get some inspiration from that. Sketching, again, this is something that sometimes you don't really see a lot of. As logo designers, we don't like showing off our sketches because they're quite rough, but they're really valuable to do. Even if you're not an artist, you're not specifically good at drawing, sketching really does help a project, specifically, when you're trying to generate different ideas and things like that. And then I'll show you how I basically take my sketches, turn them into concepts, and then how I take those concepts and turn it into like maybe 1 to 3 final designs, and how I present that to a client as well. And then of course at the end we're going to go through some questions, so by the end of this, if you have any additional questions for me, then I'm all ears, and I would love to hear what you lovely ladies have thought about the presentation, and if you've got any questions for me. So, like I said, my name is Edward, also known as Penna Design. You can find me at penna.design. That's my website where I host all of my work, a little bit more information about myself and how I help different businesses. Predominantly, I work with small businesses and startups, but I work on pretty much all manners of different industries. So I haven't quite niched down into a specific industry just yet. And part of that reason is because I love just learning about different industries, different businesses that are out there. And it really sets a nice new challenge for me every project that I take on. But specifically, what I work on is logo design work and brand identity work. It wasn't something that I always worked on. So when I started my freelance journey, I was a bit of a generalist. I worked on all different types of things because when I started was pretty much when I was in school. So I don't have like a formal background when it comes to design. Everything's self-taught. And I started off in school when I was around 14 or 15. I'm now 26 to give some context. And I pretty much just started to mess around with Photoshop and things like that. It was basically, I took up design to just play pranks on my friends and things like that. So it wasn't really anything that I took too seriously.
Haven't we all?
Exactly. You could either use design for good or evil, and of course I chose evil at the time because it was hilarious to just Photoshop my friends' faces on different characters and things like that. But soon I got a bit more of an interest in design. I was taking up different requests from my friends. They saw that I had a knack for design, and they wanted different bits for their YouTube channels, things like that. And that's where I started to take it a little bit more seriously and really dive into all these different design techniques. But mostly how I learned how to design was through YouTube. So YouTube is a massive blessing in that sense, because that's how I learned all of the different things that I know today. And I just kind of polish up certain techniques that I took from, like I say, me being a teenager. And now I've been able to use that to create a career from it. as I mentioned, it wasn't a case of me going from school to straight into a design career. So of course I went into a load of random jobs, but some of the jobs that I did take on really gave me a lot of experience, which helped me today in my design career. So for example, I worked for a short period of time in a call center, which was a high pressure environment, really helped me with my confidence and helped me grow with my sales, which of course, when you're own your own business, that does massively help. I then worked at a print store for a little bit of time under a lead designer who really helped me learn about the fundamentals when it came to print design. And of course, being a brand identity designer, that comes into play a lot of the time where you have to create different brand collaterals like business cards, letterheads, massive pop-up banners, whatever it is. Knowing those key fundamentals really did help me. And then what really skyrocketed my career and made me realize that I could pursue a career in design was getting my first opportunity in a design-centric role, which was a local video game studio based in Nottingham, which is where I live and work. Really tight-knit team, but I was working pretty much from the start of development on one of their new mobile games to the end, and they gave me so many responsibilities during that period. And at this point, this was my first real kind of taste of Adobe Illustrator, which is what I use for logo design. So I was creating a load of different icons, things like that. And that was the first time that I knew, okay, this is possibly something that I can go down, knowing that I was given so many responsibilities in this company and all the opportunities I had when I was there. After parting ways with those people, I basically started off my own business, which is obviously what I'm running now, which is Penna Design. And yeah, pretty much like I say, I started off as a generalist. And then through doing that, I noticed that there was specific projects that I enjoyed more than others. And I thought about niching down into something more so along the lines of what I enjoy the most, which is logo design and brand identity work. So that pretty much summarizes my, somewhat all over the place journey, but we're here today, and pretty much what I'm doing now is working solely on the logo and brand identity work. So like I said previously, the logo design keys, when I'm working on a logo, these are all the fundamentals. When I'm looking at a logo and creating concepts, whatever it is, sketches, all that type of thing, I'm looking at these 6 key fundamentals that I can try and incorporate in there. And I think these are very valuable to have in place, because you can look at a concept and base these keys around it. So if, for example, it's not simplistic enough, it's probably not going to be legible, and vice versa. These all kind of play into each other in some way or the other. So if you look at something and you want it to be memorable, a lot of the time what I try to do is look at what else is out there. So if I'm designing a logo for a specific industry, let's say, for example, it's for a company that does personal training, I want to look at what else is out there, and I want to try and create a concept for a logo that's going to stand out amongst all these different competitors. So you can try and base what's already out there to create something which is more memorable in that sense. So, that's the key aspect of a logo design as well, because a logo is the face of a business. You want it to be memorable. You don't want it to be something that's going to get lost in a sea of thousands of similar concepts or whatever it is. You want it to stand out. And when people come across it, you want them to be able to associate that with whatever business it is you've created it for. When I say something is simplistic, what I'm really looking at when it comes to a logo design concept is what can I remove from the composition without affecting the overall aesthetic or the overall look of it. So trying not to create something which is too complicated and which just basically gets the idea across in the most simplest way forward. And when you're looking at a logo, you might think, okay, what more can I add to it? But a lot of the times you will want to remove stuff from it to make it as simple as possible. Because otherwise things like legibility, scalability, it being versatile, those are things that you're not going to quite be able to achieve. If something's super complex, the likelihood is it's not going to be that legible. It's also not going to scale down to small sizes, which is really important with logos. And you're probably not going to have too much versatility in terms of where it can be used as well. So when you talk about legibility, that's basically just down to, can you see exactly what the logo is? Can you see the idea behind the logo? If you're using something like typography, can you read what it's trying to say? So if you're using a business name like Penna Design, for example, and you've used a really elaborate script font, can you see all the different lettering? Does it say Penna Design, or does it say something, completely jumbled up that you can't quite read? So legibility is, of course, very important because, like I say, it's the face of the business. If people can't read what the business name is, or they don't quite get the idea behind the logo, then it's going to be quite confusing for people in that sense. Versatility is all about where the logo can be used. So one of the first things that I look at, or what I discuss with clients, is where are they going to use the logo, whether that be just solely digital, so on a website, social media, or if they're going to use it in various different places, so across digital and print. So it's important to bear that in mind, because if you're wanting to have something which is, really small, let's say, for example, on a website where the logo is quite small, you need to make sure it's versatile in that sense, and of course, again, legible. But you also need to make sure that you've got various different types of logos that the business can use in these various instances. So they might have a different logo that they use for print compared to what they use for their social media profiles. And it's good to give people these options to choose from, so they're not, left in the dark, and they don't have to use a logo that isn't quite compatible with, let's say, for example, a business card or a really small profile picture. Scalable, again, this is pretty self-explanatory, but it's really important to bear in mind because a lot of the time when you're designing a logo, you're very zoomed in and honed in on the overall design, but it's important to test out how it scales. So what I try and do with my logos is, when I've done with the design, I try to basically shrink it down in size, let's say by like 50, 60%, something like that, and then have a look at it. Can I still see all of the details that I've put in there? And if I can't, what could I do differently to make sure that when it is at a smaller scale, everything is legible, like I say, and when it's used at a smaller scale, it can be used in the best possible light. Timelessness is a little bit of a trickier one to achieve, but something that you can always bear in mind is if you're struggling with the concept of something being timeless, you can look back at these big corporations like Apple, Coca-Cola, and see how their logos have changed over time. You'll notice that a lot of these businesses keep the same sort of look, but they just try and change it depending on, what's currently happening, whether it be, going from just the print age to the digital age, they change it slightly in that sense. But it's always timeless. They've kept the look throughout from pretty much the beginning of the time, minus Apple, who had a really obscure logo. If you Google it at any point, you'll see they had a really strange logo. But after they basically went from that logo to what you see now, which is the logo, the Apple logo, you'll notice that they've just done little changes over time. And that's what it means to be a timeless logo. It's something that can basically test the waters in the sense of it's going to be around for 10, 20, 30 years time. So these are all things that I try and bear in mind when I'm designing a logo, especially timelessness, because if someone's investing in your work, you want to make sure that they get their money's worth and that they don't have to change their logo in, like I say, 5, 10 years time. It's something that's going to stick around, and it's something that they can use for basically as long as their business exists. So an intro into my process, what I'm going to be showing you is a redesign for a company called Silver Sienta, and I apologize for this logo. I know it's really low res. I couldn't get a high res image of the logo, and that's something I struggled with when I was redesigning the logo as well. But to kind of summarize what it is, it's a camera shutter with 3 trees in the center, and this is a company who uses drone technology to kind of heal the environment in a sense. So what they do is they create georeference maps of a location, and they can pinpoint specific areas of that location, whether it be wildlife, foliage, whatever it is. They can analyze the location and tell you exactly what's in there. So that's pretty much what Silver Sienta do. But one of the things that I didn't really like about their logo was some factors which are super generic. So for example, the camera shutter, if you look at anyone that's a photographer, videographer, someone who uses drone technology like this business does, you'll notice a lot of the time the super generic logos use these ideas of a camera shutter, they're really overused. And if we go back to the key elements of what I try to incorporate in all of my logo designs, this is stuff that's not going to be compatible with what I've outlined, because stuff like a generic camera shutter is not going to be memorable. If you put that against, thousands of different, like I say, videographers, photographers, you're going to notice that this pattern is amongst a lot of them, and you're not going to stand out. So that was one of the things that I really wanted to change about this logo. I loved what the business did, but I just thought there's a few things that we could do to polish up this concept and create something which was much more unique for them. So the way that I did that to start off with, and this is pretty much how I start off all of my projects, is by mood boarding. Traditionally with some of my other projects, I do a little bit more research. So I'll do research into their target market, what their interests are. I'll do some research into their competitors, whether that's direct or indirect. And I'll take some notes, what those businesses do that are good and we could take inspiration from, and what they don't do so well that we could also take inspiration from and do something different with our logo. With this project, I already had a baseline understanding of who the business was. So instead of doing any of the research or anything like that, what I did was just jump into mood boarding, which is again part of the process and a really valuable part of the process as well. Because for me, I can't just jump into a project and instantly get ideas. I know some people might think that that's the case. You can just click your fingers and you come up with a super cool logo. But for me, I need to put inspiration into obviously my planning and things like that, so I know what direction we're going now. So the simple way that I did that for this project was I just took the dog for a walk. So I took Zeus, my dog, for a walk. And because this is a business that's heavily rooted in nature, I thought it'd be relevant to take pictures of different leaves, unique shapes that I came across. For example, this path in the top left-hand corner, instantly I thought the way that it wrapped around was in the shape of an S. And I thought it'd be interesting if I could try and use that concept and create a nice logo from it. So mood boarding is a really valuable way for you guys to get creative inspiration. A lot of the places that I recommend looking at when it comes to inspiration is, again, you can take a walk, you can look for inspiration in nature or different landscapes, whatever it is. Use your environment to your advantage, because there's a lot of inspiration out there to be taken. Outside of that, you can get some design inspiration from platforms like Pinterest and create really nice boards of different color schemes, all these types of things, and collate them in a nice way. You've also got platforms like Behance, which is very much design centric. So you'll see full-fledged case studies of designs and things like that. And again, you can take those, save those, and create your own mood boards from them. And also you can use platforms like Dribble, which are again really design centric, but got a ton of really useful information there and inspiration to take from. What I try to do in the mood boards is just not overwhelm myself too much. I'll have a brief notes here and there, analysing some of the things that I've, collated. I'll also have some brand colours in there, so I've got something to work from. In this project, we already had the brand colours. So with a redesign, what I tried to do is, instead of completely overhauling the logo, I tried to incorporate characteristics from the previous logo, whether that's colours or the general feel or look of it, just so it's not confusing for the audience that's viewing the business. If you completely change the look and feel of a brand that's already established, it can definitely alienate the audience that obviously they're trying to attract and their existing customers. So it's worth bearing that in mind specifically for a logo redesign. If you can, try to use some of the previous elements that they've used and, take inspiration from that. So after doing the, the research and the planning for a project, which I traditionally do, what I like to do is jump straight into the sketch work. So I've got a whole mood board to review. I've got all these different ideas that I can take a look at. I just basically take pencil to paper and see what we can come up with. And the great thing about sketching is you do not need to be an artist. As you can see from these sketches, they're not polished in any way whatsoever. They're really rough, but it gives you an idea of, what you could create. And it's just kind of therapeutic in the sense that you can get your design ideas out there super fast. It doesn't take you a long time to do. And yeah, you can just generate a bunch of different ideas. So the ideas that I came up with were quite simple, but one in particular was one that I used to the final design. So it's really valuable to do. It takes not that much time to do. It's a good way to start off the project. And a lot of the time, if you're just jumping into creating a logo right off the bat and you don't do any of these things, you'll really struggle to come up with ideas. So this is just a way to generate ideas quickly, get you started, And then I'll show you next how I took these sketches and basically turned them into concepts. So everything you create here can be imported into different design softwares like Adobe Illustrator, and it gives you a bit of a, a diagram to work from. So if I show you that next, you can see pretty much I've selected the best concepts from the bunch, or I believe to be the best, and I've taken those and created those into initial concepts. So like I said, you can import pretty much any of the sketches that you create just by taking a photo of them. So all I do is take a photo of my sketches, I then send them to a Google Drive folder. You can also just email them to yourself if you haven't got the luxury of obviously using a cloud-based system like that, and just importing them within Illustrator. And as you can see, what I've done is I've tried to design them very closely to the original sketches. Obviously, there's going to be a few tweaks here and there because you're working with, your actual shapes and tools through Illustrator. So everything's a little bit of more of a solid, polished version of your initial sketches. And as you do this, you'll come up with new variations as well. So this is another stage of the process where you're coming up with cool new ideas. As you can see, some of these concepts, like the second one, for example, it's really simple, but I've tried to see how it would look if it was flipped, just to see how that would look. I've also changed up the shape of the petals because I thought of a new and more interesting way of doing that compared to the sketch. There's a couple of more variations where I've just played around with the spacing, the stroke weight, things like that. And it's all just about experimenting. And again, going back to those key elements that I mentioned at the start with the logo design, part of the process is trying out and experimenting with all these different types of concepts. And then by the end of it, kind of analysing what works, what doesn't work, and then go from there. But like I say, this is a great way to get your foot in the door, essentially, and use your sketches to your advantage. None of them are perfect, but you can see when you polish them and make them into actual ideas that the logo really does start to come together. And from here, you'll tend to come up with a few different variations, which is really cool. So the final design that I landed on was this concept. Like I said at the start, when you're working on a redesign, what I would definitely recommend is that if you can, and the client doesn't want to just completely overhaul what they had previously, if you can incorporate elements from the previous logo into the new one that you're creating, maybe modernize it, simplify it, just make it a lot better in general, then that is the most optimal thing that you can do, in my opinion. Because again, it's not going to alienate the people that you're trying to attract with the logo. They're going to be able to recognize it still as that business that they know and love. And it's going to keep some of those characteristics and personality traits from the previous logo and carry over into something new and improved. So with this logo design, pretty much what I wanted to do was create something which was close to the original. So using 3 trees in a similar concept. So in the previous logo, they had 3 trees. They had 2 in the back, 1 in the center. So I tried to create something a little bit more polished in that sense, using really simple line work. Everything's consistent throughout. Didn't want it to be too complicated, and I definitely wanted to avoid anything generic like a camera shutter. But something simple that I did with this is I wanted to play into the fact that the business that I was doing it for did georeference maps. So essentially they are multi-layered in that sense. So at the bottom of the logo, I added these nice stylistic waves in there, but it has a hidden meaning to it in the fact that it pays homage to the fact that they do the multi-layered maps. We've also got something which is very close to nature. Of course, that's something that I set out from the start. And we've got different hidden things in there as well. Like you'll see the middle tree goes into basically 2 petals branching out. And these are all just really simple things that you can add in there, but it adds a lot of character to the design. And like I said from the start, one of the things that I wanted to keep in mind with this is that I wanted it to be, not generic, but pay homage to what the business does and be close to nature, because that's what their whole business revolves around. So apart from that, what I try to do with my presentation work, which is really important, your presentation work is going to basically convey the message that you want. So if you pick a concept that you feel is the strongest, it's all in your presentation to sell that to a client. The best possible way that you can do that, in my opinion, is using loads of different logo lockups. So showing how the logo looks as a horizontal logo, so coupled with a nice typeface and things like that, a horizontal version, an emblem version, showing a few different mock-ups that are relevant to the company. So you can think of different ways of doing that. For me, when I was designing the logo, in the back of my mind, I was picturing how it might look on a badge and as a sticker. So that's how I came up with the idea of putting mock-ups together to kind of paint that picture and show just basically how it could be used. If the business ever wanted to go down the route of using all these different printed materials, then they can see firsthand how it would look if they was to do that. And like I say, the presentation is all about selling the idea to a client. So if you don't put maximum effort into it and show all of these different logos and lockups, you're gonna have a hard time of doing that. But the best way to do that is to do it with visuals. You don't want to bombard clients with a load of different information for them to read through. One, because that's super boring, obviously, but also it's going to be overwhelming. If you write a bunch of different information for them to read through, the likelihood is they're probably not going to have time to read through it. It's going to be overwhelming and it might be confusing in the same sense. One of the things that I learned early on in my logo design career is that was fundamentally something that I was doing wrong in my process. So when I was presenting work to clients, I would send them an email with God knows how many paragraphs in it explaining and justifying my design decisions behind a logo. Whereas later in obviously my career, I worked on more so presenting a streamlined presentation which would explain itself. And I noticed drastically the change in the responses. So beforehand, I would get clients not really agreeing or kind of vibing with the design choices I made. Again, it was really hard to sell the ideas to a client. But later on, when I did nail down on that presentation, there was no kind of qualms with what I was putting across there because they loved what I was doing. They could picture how it would be used. They could see the vision behind the concept. And like I say, it just sold itself. So if I take a look at some of the items that I presented to the client, we can take a look through, and traditionally this is what I kind of show to clients as well. Not so much in the exact layout, but just to give you a closer view of the actual logo that we landed on, might paint a picture of how you could present your work as well. So using the brand colours, we've just got a nice big view of the logo mark. So that again, in a lot of places would be the face of the business. So it's important to show, how that would look. We've also got an emblem mark. So this plays into what I was saying earlier about logo lockups, creating things like emblems, horizontal stacked versions of the logo where it's just the logo mark, for example, if it's a case that you're creating a logo mark for a business. Showing how all these different things come together just gives the clients options, which ultimately is what they're going to need to, be versatile as well. So we've got a nice emblem here where it has the tagline of the business around the logo mark. We've also got the horizontal version of the logo, and I coupled this up with a really simple typeface. But again, going back to redesigning a logo, I kept this typeface simple because it was something that reminded me a lot of what they was using before. So that's why I decided to use this in particular. We've also got a nice mock-up. Like I said before, I envisioned it being used on a badge and things like that. So that's how I put this mock-up together to show how that would look. And again, when you show a mock-up to a company or a business or an individual, whoever it is, it really does capture their attention. You can look at a design in like a static or a flat view all day, but unless you can kind of capture the imagination of the client through a mock-up or whatever it is, again, you're going to have a really hard time trying to sell that idea. And mock-ups are easily attainable. You don't always have to create them yourself. You can go to free marketplaces all over the place, like Graphic Burger, for example, is a really good one. There's loads out there. Literally, if you did a Google search and put in free mock-ups, you'd see a bunch of different directories where you can get access to them. Something that I use, which is like a subscription service, is Envato Elements, and that's how I've got some of these mock-ups. But you can just see really simply by putting a mock-up out there, how everything does come together and really does paint a picture of how things can be used. We've also got, again, just a static or a flat view of that same emblem. So to show how that would be used in different places, we can also show them just a flat view of it. We've got the actual sticker version of the emblem, again, painting the picture of how this logo can be used, and a closer look at that as well. Just using all the different brand colors. So this is something that obviously I knew the brand or the business would like. using all their colours that they previously put a lot of time and effort into using them again in a nice, clever way. I knew it was something that they were probably going to vibe with and probably, you know, really like the idea of. And then showing a stacked version of the logo. Again, logo lockups are really important to use. And wrapping things off by showing a logo mark basically against something which was relevant to the business. So a nice background. It's got the drone or aerial view of a landscape. And again, it ties into what the business does really well. And yeah, I feel like I've run through that super quickly, and I apologize if I have, but I appreciate you all for, you know, sticking with me and walking through the entire process. I guess if I have run through this super fast, then we can take this opportunity to go through any questions that you guys might have. So if you do have any, please do let me know, and we'll take this opportunity to go through all the wonderful questions that you have.
Oh, thank you so much, Edward. I mean, that was perfect timing, because usually this is more or less the amount of time that the speakers use for their presentations,
good.
and then all the time remaining is, you know, left to Q&A. So perfect timing. Well done. Great presentation.
I felt that I went through that super fast, but I guess I didn't. That's good to know.
No, I mean, it was filled of like great tips. I've, you know, noted some you know, some great tips down. So, and it's great to see such a young designer with not a linear path, as you're saying, but yet such an inspirational one, because you clearly, like, you really shown us how getting your hands dirty and practicing and the experience really has helped you sharpen your skills and improve as a designer and define yourself a little bit in your practice. So from being a generalist, which I like to think is more being like a curious individual, it's just like really helped you shape yourself into the professional that you are today. And you're just 26 years old, and to me that's like amazing, because you know, it's not my experience. And I don't know, I think of 26, my Claudia 26, I don't know, let's not think about that.
Yeah, I guess I'm a bit unusual in that sense. I've never been like a party animal or anything like that. Literally, when I was growing up, I was just big into gaming. That was my thing, like just a massive nerd. And I think that just developed into, like I say, design. I wanted an outlook or something like that where I could get my creative energy out there. And graphic design to me was a way for me to be able to do that. But yeah, going into what you're saying about it not being a linear path, I think for a lot of people it isn't. But in the moment when you're going from all these different careers, you feel like it's a bit of a waste of time. But retrospectively, looking now at all these different career opportunities that I had, although they were kind of short-lived because I didn't quite enjoy them in the moment, I can see how they've helped me, you know, shape the designer that I am today. Like I say, you know, the print experience is invaluable because I use that on pretty much a day-to-day basis. And yeah, I mean, all I'd say is to younger designers out there or people that are not, you know, quite sure on what career path to take is just experience different things. Try not to take them for granted. Try to take everything that you can from every single experience that you have in life. I know that not all experiences are going to be enjoyable, but just try to take little bits and positives from, you know, these different experiences, and they will help you in the long run for sure.
Yeah, I think it's such a great tip, and I think it can apply to all aspects of our life. You know, just like, well, that's what we've been doing since, you know, since we were kids, just trying things and see how hot the fire is and what burns and what doesn't. You know, just like, you know, find what works for you and embrace your passions and carry on doing them like perfectly, just like you did. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I think it was so valuable. And even the sketch, you know, when you were saying the sketches, sometimes people be embarrassed of showing their sketches, and you know, they really have a lot of value as well, because you know, if we think of, I don't know, Leonardo da Vinci, I'm sure he was like, oh, don't look at my sketches, like
yeah, exactly.
But actually you know, it's great to see the amazing thought behind.
It's a bit of an insecurity in that sense. When we look at our sketches, I know that I've experienced this for sure. When you're looking at sketch work, you want it to be super polished. You want it to be this absolutely magnificent piece of artwork. But for most logo designers, that's not the case. If you follow different logo designers out there, I know a few that show their logo design work, And it's similar to mine. It's not supposed to be polished. You're not supposed to be massive. You're not supposed to be great at drawing in any sense of the word. It's just about getting some general ideas and concepts together, and that will help you come up with that finalized, polished concept at the end of the journey. So that's all it's really used for, essentially. So try not to be too in your head when you're putting the sketch work together. That's what I'd say. Just take it as a little bit of inspiration going forward.
And I think it truly highlights as well your final result, you know, because you can see from the rough kind of sketch, and then you can see the process, and it kind of brings more value to the final result. Your mock-ups were beautiful. Like I wish I had that little badge, even though I'm not, you know, I don't even know what that company, I've never heard of that before, but I just love the little badge. So, you know, that's a great result.
Exactly.
I will ask you maybe after our talk to have a look at our logo and see if you can give me some tips.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to have a look at the logo. I'll be honest with you now, though. I think you guys have got a great logo. I mean, it speaks to your personality as a community. It's you 100%, and I think that's all you can try and get into a logo, and it works as well. You know, you're able to use it in various different places. Like I say, if you're able to get a personality characteristic out there that people can see and they know that it's you, then that's perfect. It doesn't have to be, you know, a masterpiece, a Leonardo da Vinci piece or anything like that. Like it works. So I'll give you some advice for sure on maybe some things that I changed with. But I think you've got a really nice logo.
Oh, thank you. That's
100%.
great. Yeah, I'm pleased to hear that. All right, let's open up questions with the community. Let's see. People, as per usual, feel free to just jump on your mics or put your hands up with the emojis at the bottom of our page here. Just or use the chat. I can see there's some messages here in the chat. People are saying that was awesome, Edward. So well explained.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Respect to all logo designers. We made sure to share your website and your social as well.
Oh, thank you for that.
People
Really
on YouTube
appreciate
are loving the mood boards as well. That's great. All right, Hillary's got her hands up, I can see.
Okay,
Thank
Hillary.
you, Edward. That was so great to like see that entire process. Like just so you think you went fast, but I think that was like really good. Everyone was
Okay, cool.
watching. Like,
I'm glad to hear.
And like so there's two things. One was like my question, and then I saw Ada's comment, and now I have two questions. So,
Okay.
because I think I'll start with Ada. So because she said that she, you know, she never comes up with anything interesting, but like from your beginning mood board, do you have any like tips? Because, you know, like Ada is super talented, so there's got to be a way to translate that into something interesting, right? Like,
absolutely, there is. Absolutely. I think, like I say, a lot of it boils down to the planning and the research stages. So that's why I don't jump into doing, you know, a logo straight away, because I'd be in the same position. I would think, okay, I've got no good ideas whatsoever to put out here. So what I would recommend is doing simple stuff like mind mapping and mood boarding. You might think, okay, this is really simple, it's probably not going to work. But a lot of the time when you're putting a logo together, it is a case of word association. So you're trying to think of different things that play into what you're trying to create. So do something simple like a mind map, see where your mind takes you. And then from there, see if there's any other ideas that branch out from there. But ultimately, give yourself time to do it. Don't feel like you're going to come up with ideas like that, because for me, I can tell you 100% that just doesn't happen during my process. I take maybe a few days here and there to come up with research and planning. And then that's when creatively I'll start to come up with some solid ideas. So be patient, try things out like mind mapping, mood boarding, and you can create various different mood boards as well. It doesn't need to just be one solid mood board. You could come up with a couple, you know, different ideas, different styles. You know, there's things such as stylescapes where you are specifically exploring a specific style. So maybe you could do that with your mood boards, you know, explore different themes, see what you kind of vibe with, see what you don't, and then go from there. But just experiment with it. Don't, you know, be too insecure with stuff. You know, you're great, you're talented, you know you are. So believe in the process and go from there.
yeah, That's cool. And Ada says a logo bubble, and yes, girl. That's
Exactly.
the mind map, right?
There we
So,
go, the mind map. Yes,
yeah,
you've got it.
yeah.
100%.
That's great. And okay, so then my other question was about it wasn't scalability, it was like was it reusability? Like it was like a versatility. Okay, so I have a logo right now and I love it because it's a little heart with a smiley face. So I'm like, and then I have like other groups and I'm like, oh, I'll just reuse it and I'll change the color. And then I'm like, that's not really like, oh my God. So I'm literally like, this is like my current dilemma on some of my like on my iPad, and it's like so I changed the color and then I also changed the smile a little bit, like just a little bit, because I was like, hey, maybe I can like reuse this basic character, but it's like different moods of this character, or like, depending on the smirk. It changed it because I changed it at one point. I was like, oh no, like I don't know what that is, So it did change it, and I'm wondering, is that versatile in a logo, or is that just like me? I don't know.
I think so. I think so. What I'd say is, and that's a perfect question actually, because I got a similar question the other day from someone on Instagram who's basically got a logo and they started a podcast, and what they were doing was super complex and it didn't need to be complex. I think you're on the right line and they wasn't so much. So what you're doing is perfect. Creating different variations of the logo. It's still you as a brand. It still speaks to your personality, but you're using different concepts basically to speak to different, types of things that you're looking into. So for the podcaster, for example, my recommendation to them was to literally use the logo that they're using previously. Maybe just have a tagline in there which says podcast or whatever it is, just something to describe what it is that they're doing. So when people look at it, they know that that's still the brand that they follow. They know that it's something else that they're branching into. And
that's something else that it's branching into. That's what I was thinking. Is like maybe they'll just think it's the same thing but different.
Exactly. If they came to terms with your overall look and the way that you use the smiley face, then they know that that's you.
Okay.
It's just you're using different variations of it. They know that that's something different that you're doing, if that makes sense. So you might want to play around with the colours as well, because that obviously adds contrast to things. If people are seeing the same colours, it might be harder for them to see those different tweaks that you're making to the smiley face if it's not against, maybe some other type of colour that you use within your branding. So play around with the colours, things like that, because it differentiates it in that sense. If they're seeing it on a different colour, then they might be able to recognize these different quirky things that you're adding to it a little bit easier. That would be my recommendation anyway. But I think you're on the right path. You've got the right thought process behind creating variations. So yeah.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you for the questions. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. And feel free to share it. I think, is that the right logo that I shared in the chat, Hillary? I'm not sure. Maybe. But yeah, everyone loves Hillary's questions and enthusiasm. She's amazing, and she's our official bubble maker. So I think this talk really links well with what she does, and I'm already thinking like I'm gonna be using her method and your logos, and it's just gonna be everything's gonna flow. Which is, it's just the result of a community just gathering all these amazing talents from all over the world and just making the most of it. So, yeah,
absolutely.
You guys are flourishing. You guys are amazing.
Renee,
Mama Renee.
That is the logo. That's the one that I like had the outline, like you're saying, the variations, the outline with like the stamp, and then sometimes it's just the face, and then now it's a bit of a different face. But
my question to you would be, like, where are you using this logo? Are you using it on like as a profile picture for social media? Yeah.
That one is a profile picture on LinkedIn, I think, as the newsletter logo, I'm pretty sure. So then sometimes it's just the face on a profile picture. Yeah, there's no print. There's nothing printed yet. Like it's all just trying to fit within profile pics.
So if I was to give you a couple of tips here on what I would do with it, nothing major, don't worry, I'm not going to absolutely shred it.
It's fine, it's fine.
What I would do is, particularly if you're using, you know, the UX Vocab Club typography with the logo mark, is one, in certain places, obviously you've got to bear in mind that profile pictures are super small. So again, going back to legibility, maybe what I would do is just try to increase the size of that text just a fraction, just in case, you know, it's not as legible on, you know, things like profile pictures and stuff. On a side note as well, to add a little bit of contrast between the elements, you know, going back to what we said about things being distinguishable and things like that, so that people can see the logo mark and they can see the typography as separate entities, but they all come together. Just to add a bit of contrast between the two, it might be nice to add a little bit of color into the mix. So maybe having the typography as the gray or the grayish color that you're using at the minute, but add some color in there through the heart. And that's, I think, where you could do the variation. So, you know, what I was saying earlier about you creating these different variations of the heart, you could do that with the colors as well. So instead of changing the background color, you could just change the color of the heart. So, you know, just a simple way of doing things. But yeah, generally, I think it's a good logo. Definitely characterful. And I can imagine all different types of quirky ways that you could switch up the face. But yeah, like I say, maybe just add some contrast in there. So both of the different bits are more distinguishable, and also just maybe make that type a little bit bigger, just in case it's not so legible when it is shrunken down as a profile picture.
I noticed that. That's like bang on, because I was trying to read the little and I was like, oh, you can't even see this.
I mean,
so that's perfect. Thank you.
No worries. I mean, you've done a good job with picking the right type. You know, picking something big and bold means that it's going to be more legible, of course. So you've chosen quite a nice way. It's nice and bold. Like I say, just make it a touch bigger. And I think, yeah, you'll be all good. I think you'll be good to go.
Thank you. Thanks, Claudia, for putting that up there.
Of course. You know, anything that brings value. And I was already like sketching a bit of your thing. Wow, where's my camera? I mean,
nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Edward, would you be able to share your slides with me on an email?
Absolutely.
Amazing. So just, if anyone else has got any more questions for Edward here, if not, we can release him and be ever grateful to having you here, for having you here.
No problem at all. Like I say, thank you very much for inviting me on again. And if any of you guys don't have questions now, but if you want to reach out to me at any point, you know, you can find me on social media. Reach out to me, drop me a message. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. I love answering questions, so I'm always around to do that.
Amazing. If you want to be in our Discord, we have a channel just for men supporters. So if you want to hang out with us,
send it along. I'll join up. Yeah,
come and hang out, because you know we like you a lot.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Well, thank you so much, Edward. Thank you for coming, and it's finally lovely to meet you in person, I guess. And yeah, we'll speak again soon.
All right, thank you very much, guys. I hope you have a lovely day, and hopefully I'll speak to you all soon again.
Yeah.
So take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And let me just head over to YouTube and close the live. All right. Bye, YouTube people. See you next week.